Now, technology has impacted the different aspects of the human society, including education. The advent of information, communication and technology, thus ICT, made it imperative that different educational activities be done using technology. Many schools, including primary, secondary and tertiary, now conduct computer-based entrance examinations. In Nigeria, some schools have taken it a notch higher by ensuring that every test and examination is computer-based. For the student, this means they must be familiar with the use of computers, the internet and the web, as computer-based test is an innovative education assessment of learning. For students in secondary schools, this helps prepare them for the JAM and post-UTME exams that are both computer-based. But the drawback is that students not familiar with the use of computers might be left behind. Joining me now is Elder Tunde Oladipo. He is the MD CEO, Citigrade Technologies Limited, and former MD Electronic Test Company Limited. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Now, let's start from the beginning, talking about when CBT, that's computer-based test, was brought to the fore in Nigeria. I think it was introduced in 2013 to the system, talking about the education system. But then it was adopted, I think, sometime 2015. But then when you look at how far we have come, how would you assess the development so far? Because we have seen some level of challenges that has been witnessed over time. But before we get there, talk to us. This is your field. How this has improved the process of examination, because we also see not just in the education system, some companies, organizations have also adopted this step as well.
Yes, it actually started around 2006.
2006?
Yes.
But reports say 2013.
Yes, because JAMB actually started adopting it around 2013, 14, 15. Right. That's why. But computer-based, as we all know now, is a paperless way of conducting exams and assessments. And I used to work for a company called JKK, Joint Computer Company. We those days we used to pride ourselves as the premier ICT company in Nigeria. Okay. And one of the things we were doing there was to be able to do those things that other people have not even thought of. For example, JKK was the first company that started delivering exam results to phones of candidates. Yes.
In 2007
or 8.
Wow.
I think 2006, 2007, yes. So if you write an exam, you do not need to go to the JAMB office to
just get your send the result on the phone.
You send the result on your phone and the phone of your parents. So after we did that, the idea of computer-based testing came up, and a company was set up to be able to address that vertical. I always say that teaching and learning is the upstream of education. Examination, assessment is the downstream. Absolutely. And if you don't take the downstream seriously, what sort of students or what sort of citizens are we going to have after university and so on? So we approached a number of universities, tertiary institutions, and of course most of them didn't like it because they thought it's too expensive, it's too cumbersome. How do you deal with power? How do you deal with how many computers am I going to need? And we told them, this is something that we have thought about. All we need is your partnership. If you just agree that we can set up a computer-based test center in your school, and we partner and ensure that there are students put it to use, your post-jam is done there, your large class exams, your GNS exams are done there. And everybody will be in good state because, number one, it will remove the issue of exam malpractices because now you sit in front of the computer, your questions come, you answer them. Before you get to that door, your result is ready. And so there is no issue of whether they mix up your result, or as they used to say, if they got 250 in JAMB, they say I got 250. If he gets 150, he say JAMB gave me 150. You understand?
Right.
So those issues are no longer there. And it does not take so long for the candidate to get his result, unlike in the past, maybe a month or two. And the students used to believe that during that period they used to manipulate their results, which is essentially not true. So those are the things, and it becomes cheaper. Of course, I'm sure you know now that to write JAMB now is a lot cheaper now. In fact, they deliberately reduced because to do computer-based is cheaper. You don't need to print any questions. You don't need to carry questions up and down. So these
were the objectives the company set to address at the time.
Yes.
And it didn't get anybody to key into this vision.
Eventually, we set up a company called Electronic Test Company, and the University of Ilorin keyed into it. We spoke with the VC, and he understood it immediately. Myself and my chairman then, we met him, and he understood it and said, okay, what do we need to do? You just create the questions. We'll build the centers. You bring the students. And in 2008, we did 35,000 candidates exam in 5 days in 2 simultaneous locations, and the results came out same day. And everybody now says, okay, so this thing can actually work. So several other universities, we actually approached 66, 67 universities, and only one gave us a chance. Immediately they saw the University of Ilorin did it successfully, even though we had hitches, but they were all teething hitches. The following year, I think about 16 more joined, and the year after, and by the time I left ETC, because I was the MD of ETC, we ran the whole thing. It was actually a team thing. We had a big, great team that time. So by the time I left, we had already done 2 million exam sittings after 2012 when I left.
So we can categorically say that you and that team were the pioneers of CBT.
Absolutely.
In exams in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
But then you mentioned teething hitch at the time when you did it with the University of Ilorin.
Yes.
And recently we saw that 30 CBT centers were delisted at the commencement of the UTME this year. And for biometric and browser failure, incompetence of technical staff, poor performance, and the likes, those were the issues. Would you say that we have outgrown this teething hitch that you encountered at the time, stemming from this development that we're seeing?
Yes, some of the issues we encountered in 2008 were issues of logistics, actually. The centers that have been delisted, most of them are actually private centers. Yeah. But if you go to the centers where that tertiary institutions built by themselves, they don't usually have those sort of issues. However, when those issues come, you must always have a plan B. If this fails, you must go back to do this. If this fails, you must go back to this. Those are the kind of things we ensured that were put in place that time, which expects that they should have grown above. There are standards that JAMB has given that if you fall below that standard, they will shut you down. And most of the centers, especially privately owned, try so much and so hard to keep up with those standards. For example, the issue of power is a major issue.
Yes.
And one of the things that we did then was to have a type of computer called thin clients. Those thin clients were computers that require only maybe 10 watts, 15 watts of power, as against a normal computer that requires 200.
So no matter how low the current was,
your systems will work. Secondly, your backup system, like the generator, you do not need a 500 kVA gen. or a 300 kVA gen to power a center of 250 systems. You need just maybe 30 kVA, and you need also maybe an inverter of maybe 30 kVA inverter and so on. So if the cost of setting up a center comes down because the ultimate delivery system you're using is low power, then you shouldn't have those big issues that many of them have. Also in biometrics it has so developed these days that unlike those nowadays in 2007, 2008, that you have to put your finger, you have to do this and that. These days you can actually do iris biometrics.
Yes.
And all of those things come a little bit cheaper than they used to be. So personally, I see no reason why those things shouldn't be working like clockwork. But there will always be issues in those sort of things.
But perhaps some will say that the economic factor are some of the reasons why we are seeing what you mentioned now as a challenge.
Yes, the economic factor is there. I personally will have advocated, or rather maybe I should seize the opportunity to advocate that anyone who wants to invest in education should be able to get a loan at 1 digit. If you're able to get a loan at 1 digit, a single digit interest rate, I mean,
yes,
you should be able to get your acts together, because if you go to bank, they ask you for 22, 26, and there is no money anywhere, just like you said in the economy, there is no money anywhere. And the only people who can go to are maybe a bank of industry that can understand that, okay, this guy is going to use this and going to plow back the income so that he can be able to pay his loan and be able to own the center by himself. Those kind of things. Number two, economically, centers are mandated to have minimum of 250 computers, and if you don't get the right type of technology, it will be extremely expensive for you. So we need to merge all of this together.
Let's also talk about the poor ICT culture, which some persons also see as a major challenge here, because we mentioned in our intro to this conversation that there are those who are not familiar with the use of the computers. How much of a challenge is that also constituting to re-entrenching this culture of CBT test?
We have no choice than to follow the trend of the world. The whole world is driven by ICT now. Anyone who is not ICT compliant is being left behind. These days, for example, most chief executives don't have typists any longer because they can type by themselves. It is because IT has ensured that you could actually do some things by yourself. You can actually do a voice note by yourself. You can actually speak and it will type it for you. So why do I need a typist? Now, we're talking of people or students or candidates who want to go to university so that they will, when they graduate, they will impact the community. If you are not IT compliant.
But you understand our curriculum, which a lot of persons have said we need to rejig as it is to, focus on or to reflect the times that we are in, that we are still using the curriculum of the ancients, if I may use that word. It's a concern to a lot of persons. You see in places like China, Japan, you see children of 3 years, playing with robots, playing with one thing or the other, but that is not the same here.
No, it's not, because just like you said, the issue of curriculum, even students studying computer science, from what I heard, are still using the curriculum that we used in our ancient days. And if we do not imbibe the culture, not only in ICT studies, but in all studies, and ensure that there is always a segment or an item on it that ensures that, and like I always say, you must start from as far back as primary school. You must start as far back as primary school, not just secondary, but as far back as primary school. So if you grow with it, And when you grow with it, by the time you get to like age of 16, 17, you're about to get into university, you're already ICT compliant. And everybody uses the phone.
Not everyone.
Well, majority of the young people we're talking about use the phone. If you're able to use the phone, you should be able to be IT compliant at all times. At all times. So I don't like giving excuses that, okay, some people in the rural areas, they have to come. They have to come. There was a project we did in Wukari. One of the, I think, State Assembly members saw well into the future. I said, see, he called us and said that, come and set up a small CBT center for me to be able to be training my young people from age of 14, 15, so that by then they get the age of jump, they will have been compliant. And we did it. And the following year, it was like magic.
Now, you just mentioned something. He saw into the future.
Yes, he did.
How many of our leaders are like that as we speak, seeing into the future, which is a major concern for a lot of persons? When you look at the policies being made, yes, a lot of persons are saying this is taking us 10 years backwards. True. That is the reaction you get. So how many of our leaders are forward thinking in the policies? How many of them are seeing into the future like you and your team saw in 2006 as it stands? Yes. Because the future of Nigeria is also being threatened with what it is now. Yes. Looking at the developments when it comes to ICT.
Just like you said, I think if we entrench ICT and technology generally early enough in our curriculum, even in the rural areas, they will have understanding that there is computer and that I'm going to use that computer at the age of 16, 17. It's better for them to start learning how to use it now. Whether they are studying English or history or geography or physics, you must imbibe the culture of IT, because that is who would have thought maybe 40 years ago that planes will start flying by themselves? Right. Who will have thought that you can actually do an aided surgery from another continent, not just another country? All right. And there are several things that IT has brought into the world, and we need not be left behind.
Very importantly, we do hope that the necessary authorities are listening and ensuring that we are not left behind, as you have rightly pointed out. We'll have to leave the conversation here now. Elder Tunde Oladipo, MD CEO, Citigrade Technologies Limited, former MD, Electronic Test Company Limited. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you so much, Jerry.